Namaste and Hotel Royal families. Welcome to 3 Eyes Open Radio. I'm Eternally Risen, the host. And today I have a privilege to speak with a phenomenal woman here in Tampa. She has a lot of great things going on in her life. Her name is Donia Kristy. And today's topic is the importance of networking. And being that it's Women's History Month, the whole month of March, why networking and connecting with other women to unify will make this world a better place because there's a balance. Anyhow, so thank you, Donia, for coming on. I'm giving you the floor. Tell everybody about you and what you do.
Hello, everyone. Hello, beautiful people. My name is Donia Kristy. That's actually a combination of my first and middle name. I am a Haitian, first generation, actually, immigrant. So my mother immigrated here, and then I was the first one to be born in America. I am a graduate student at USF. I'm actually studying cellular biology as my graduate studies. I also design clothing. I have my own clothing line called the Marjani Collection, and I also manage and help do all the financial literacy for the Creative Lounge.
Wow. Y'all hear all the great things that she does, and being a woman is phenomenal. Much respect to men. Like I said, it has to be a balance. Anyways, back to networking. So the importance of networking, of course, you're building relationships with one another, and the connections, you have opportunities with people and whoever is in your contacts, a meet and greets community. Connecting makes you successful. It's like a bridge, and it's about unity. And you guys know that that's my foundation, is about unifying.
Woman to woman. I learned at a young age, you are never lonely if you can connect.
Because pretty much it's about empowerment. So being that it's Women's History Month, we're stronger together, and we know that, we're important to society or whatnot. So I'm going to give you guys the origin and the pretty much the foundation of where Women's History Month came from. So we've been celebrating the actual month since 1978. It actually was a week, a Women's History Week. So the Women's History Month began as a local celebration in Santa Rosa, California. So we got to give it up to those in California, the commissioners and everybody who was in office there during 1978. Props for, introducing Women's History Week, which turned into the month where we celebrate and honor one another, because it gives us a time to reflect on how we are important to society and whatnot. The first Women's History Day, actually, it started as a day before it was a week, was in 1909. And then in 1978, like I informed you guys, it became a week of celebrating women and honoring women and their importance in society. And then it became a month in 1987. That's a year before I was born, so I always remember that. And it involved women's organizations and National Women's History Allegiance. The president, Jimmy Carter, was in office during that time. So 14 states actually declared it as a month initially before everybody jumped on board. So, yeah.
Wow, that's actually crazy. I didn't know all those facts. And I think at that time in history, when you think about it, the 70s, a lot of stuff was going on.
Right.
We was transcending out of, I guess, hippie culture.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of black people was getting Afrocentric with it and things like that. But it's crazy because in 1960s is when women finally was able to get their own bank accounts. So I wonder if this was a viewing of us being fully liberated, okay, now y'all can control y'all money, y'all don't have to be married, let's let's celebrate y'all, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because before that in history, you could just look up and down the whole timeline, and it's a lot that we had to go through to get that far. So that's great. I did not know that.
Oh yeah, I recall a lot of women, my grandmother, I still have my, the elders in my family, they tell us back in the 60s and 70s, women didn't have the jobs that we have now. Well, society has changed, period. That basic structure of a family that we had, back in the day when it was women are the homemakers or whatnot, and men had all the great jobs and everything, and they were the breadwinner. That's not, that's no longer the case.
See, and when it comes to that, I feel like we always have to, this is why I think when it comes to women's rights, we're going to get into talking about the actual networking event, but I think this is why it's so important. It was so important when I was actually doing the flyer to incorporate different types of women.
Right.
Because there needs to be an intersectionality that we understand as women, right?
Right.
Because when we talk about that history, it's not really our history as Black women.
Right.
Not to get too political, right? Because we do have to touch on not everything, but we do have to make it understood why the networking and coming together is so important.
Right.
Because as Black women, it was more of we didn't have the privilege of being the homemaker fully. Because at the time, men were more heavily discriminated against, right? Mm-hmm. You talk about Jimmy Carter, I'm thinking about, Jimmy Carter, Nixon, that whole era of Republicans where the war on drugs started. A lot of men was being, incarcerated at higher amounts.
Right.
Black men, as far as going outside, there's still, the anti-lynching bill was just passed this year, but around that era of time, when you look from the 50s going into the 60s to the 70s, it was still lynching across the United States. So a lot of Black women, we had to be the breadwinners in our family.
Right, so you're saying that it was like pretty much forced on us.
Yeah, it was pretty much forced on us. To be the breadwinners and to basically unite the family in a way that can not only protect the Black man, but protect the children, right?
Right.
Because you think about the integration to school, like the first little girl who walked into a white school and how they was throwing stuff at her and beating her up. There was a community of Black women who actually rallied for that in protection. The court martial, like the marshals had to be come down, the military had to escort her into school. And she talks about her plight and like how, they would say, she would only have to eat certain things because she was worried that they was going to poison her food, things like that. For Black women, I think the struggle was not, we transitioned out of being housewives into a softer, like into transition out of being housewives into the working force. It wasn't like that for us. I feel like we went from a very service-based, like we're the maids, the nannies, the help. We went from that, which was labor-inducing. A lot of, Black women couldn't raise their families and things like that, to now, we are the highest educated group when it comes to getting, with the highest educated group, which is good for the labor force. We're also the highest rate of opening businesses. Like when you think about the Creative Lounge, and you just think about how this is a platform where, Kima founded it, and then here come Misha with the studio, and then I'm helping just wrap everything together. That's amazing.
It is.
But at the same time, when you don't see that type of business often in a man's realm. So it's like, not only are we breaking barriers and going into a different dynamic that hasn't been seen in history, we're also creating a very diverse opportunities, because these are opportunities that we envision as women that we think can help the community.
Well, building connections is a necessity for helping others.
Versus, men usually stick to certain industries, more of the machismo, I don't want to say the machismo industries, but there's a lot of mechanics. They make good money. It's already a built foundation,
Right.
It's a lot of men who will go into, creating a studio, just a studio. You know what I'm saying? A lot of men go into the similar industries.
Right.
Because they've always benefited men. But as women, we can sit here and piece together different ideas from our own paths, right? Because you think about Kima, who's been making shirts from in her home to in this space, in a smaller space, now having a whole building.
Right.
And you think of Nisha, who's a female rapper, who found it easier for her to produce and do her own music, So based off of our experiences as women, the little struggles we probably had or the difficulties we had, we can cultivate these new ideas.
Right.
And this is why it's so important to give us those platforms and give us those resources so we can. And going back to what I was saying about intersectionality and stuff like that within feminism, you think about, the white women, they have the privilege and things like that. But at the same time, they still have a lot of issues that are going on within their feminism. And I think it's important to note that feminism wouldn't have been a thing if the Black women who were working didn't unify and stand in solidarity with the white women who are at home.
Right.
and also the lesbian community. Because when you actually look into the history, those were the groups of women that came together. And mind you, there were some housewives that wanted to stay housewives, so they fought. But the majority of women who went through, the tragedies women go through, rape, domestic violence, and things like that, they slowly, because of their experiences, became feminist.
Wow.
Like, I think a lot of times we think of feminists as just being, stick it to the man and, cutting up bras and things like that. But it's not about that. It's really about knowing that sometimes the only people who can understand the plight of a woman is another woman.
Right. Despite diversity, ultimately it's about empowering one another, because we know our importance, and men, they're rigid thinking sometimes, but women can be as well. But that ultimately it's about empowerment, because we had to have a voice because we were quieted before we even had an opportunity, So yeah. I'm grateful for the shifts that have happened to, create a balance.
Yeah, I mean, the shifts has come from, every different, perspective. Like, we think about the Hispanic and indigenous people and what they had to go through as far as immigration and being women and things like that. Sometimes it's easier when we think about, like, child brides or, like, being bought as a woman to be someone's bride or girlfriend. And a lot of times people think, oh, my goodness, that's crazy. But a lot of them do that for survival, to immigrate into this country or to change from the lifestyle that they came from. So that's why it's so important to come together as women, because these are different struggles that I think on any class-based, racial-based, ethnical-based, we can all understand. It's
non-discriminate. It's like, women of all cultures have to actually become powerful in their own right.
Exactly. We have to become powerful in our own right, but at the same time, we can all understand each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, this is why, being someone who is childless, a lot of my friends are single mothers, or are just mothers, married or not. But as women, we can understand the basis of bringing in community and raising a child.
Right.
And even though I don't have kids of my own, as women, we were always there when our mothers were doing it. We were there when our aunties were doing it. And that's why it's so important to really think about what is a tribe. Usually the tribe that raises the child, the strongest force in that tribe is the women.
Right.
Yes, the men are there to protect.
You're right. The matriarch, everybody always referring to their grandmother. Everybody that had, any type of family structure. There was always an elder woman who actually was wise and gave way to all the things of growing up, the upbringing and rearing of that child that is now an adult, maybe,
Yeah, exactly. Because you think about food, being able to provide the comfort of a home to raise a child mentally, right? Who teaches us ethics? Who really teaches you how to treat people, right? And how to be in this world a kind individual, right? I feel like my mom was always telling me, stand up for yourself, but at the same time, be kind. If you're always kind, any force that comes at you, you're going to have people behind you because you're not an awful person.
Right.
And even if you got to stand up for yourself, you know how to deflect conflict enough that when you do have to stand up for yourself and it's the last straw, at least you have the knowledge and the understanding of what's going on in order to defend yourself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because emotional understanding is so important. And I feel like they always say that women run on their emotions. And I think that we downplay emotions because the reality is everything is emotional.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
When you go into an office meeting and you got to be stern, you got to be on point, you got to be focused. Those, you have to tap into that emotion of being in that confident mindset where you can speak. You know what I'm saying? When it's time for you to speak to children and you have to be soft and delicate, that's an emotion. You have to understand that these kids don't understand. And you have to feel sympathy for them in order to articulate your words so you don't hurt them. And at the same time, they can understand where you're coming from. We downplay the fact that women are emotional beings, but that's a powerhouse within itself.
It is. So, wow. Thank you for that, because that's important for the masses to know and be aware of. It's not just about men. This is a balanced world today. Right. So back to networking, I want to talk about how are you empowering women through networking, because like you enlighten everybody. You have multiple businesses and you have a lot of experience and you're very well educated. Like, do you know like the importance of networking for you, like personally?
Well, for me personally, the importance of networking obviously is a building of community. If that makes sense. Just how we're talking about, raising a child. I think that we're never fully raised. Not even that we're never fully raised. I don't want to say it like that so people could think, oh my goodness, what? But I think that we're never done growing.
Right.
We're going to grow until we can't grow no more. We stop existing.
Right.
And the reality is you can't navigate this world alone. I think a lot of people think, oh, I have my relationship with my partner and that's all I need, or I got my girlfriends. But the reality is I've been someone who's moved from Miami to New York City to Tampa. And one thing I think that has always kept me happy, active, socially, and just grounded wherever I am is the fact that I've had a good network of women around me to support me, So this event, of course, we're doing it at the Creative Lounge, which is a powerhouse between me, Kima, and Misha, which I love all the time. Irizzi, you're there also, hosting and doing things, which I love. But being able to open up that powerhouse to other women to come together, because there may be things that you're lacking in your business, you may not, like I was talking to some of these dancers, it's the reality of getting opportunities as a dancer, paid opportunities, I'm also, networking with some of these authors who have books, and their books are like, based in their experiences as women and getting those out and things like that. I think everyone has a plan, but even when you have a plan, you realize that you need people to help drive that plan. When you look at social media and you look at, TikTok, Instagram, and things like that, a lot of people who have more power in those realms have followers.
Right.
Which means people support them. And I think as women, it's so important to be backed up by other women, because when we're talking about the plight of women and what we go through, yes, only another woman can really understand.
Right.
And society has made it where we're stereotyped to be catty, cat fights, we don't get along and things like that. But I think in my life, I think in most women's life, when you look at how we move, it's completely the opposite.
Right.
Every time I've needed something, every time I've had a hardship, I always had a girlfriend, a female friend, obviously, to be there and support me. When I was getting my first apartment in Tampa at one point, I didn't meet the income for where I wanted to live because I wanted to live close to USF and obviously in a safe neighborhood. And the woman that actually was in the leasing office looked at me and said, "You remind me of my daughter. She had to be like 40-something. And she did something where she kind of manipulated the numbers and made it so that I qualified.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we look out for one another.
Exactly.
That's the understanding you're referring to.
Exactly. It's like looking out for other women, even when it's like, sometimes you're walking down Ybor and you see a drunk girl wandering off by herself, it's always instinctual for a woman to be like, "Hey, are you okay? Where are your friends?" You know what I'm saying? Because
it's like an innate connection that we have with one another, with the understanding. That's what men have to learn how to... They have to learn it. I don't think it's instinctual for them. I think it's something that they learn from the women in their lives, because, men are like every man for himself type thing,
Oh, yeah, exactly. But as women, we understand that we're more powerful in groups.
Right.
Like the first friends you make in school are usually other girls.
Right.
Even if you make a male friend and stuff like that, that's fine, but the majority of your friends as a woman will always be women.
Right.
So it's important to come through and network because there's power in numbers. You can't do it alone. And to have a powerhouse of women, a lot of times I feel like women have so much resources. I think just being a woman, you walk into a space, guys want to talk to you, girls want to talk to you. Next thing you know, like 6 people. So if you put your 6 people together, I put my 6 people together, we can find someone to do what got to be done. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's also what's really important is that a lot of the women that I've come in contact with, especially in Tampa, they already have LLCs.
Right.
Or they already have started somewhere. and they just need someone to take them to the next level. A lot of times I'm just like, hey, I know this person. I always get the same response. And a lot of times, you know, it also includes mentorship, you know. There's a lot of there's some older women that are also going to be at this event. And one thing about them is, you know, they can give us motivation and things to let us know about paths that we probably haven't crossed yet within our age or within our privilege, you know, wherever you are in life. So that can also help because guidance is so important.
Who will have the power to shape our children for the next 4 or 8 years of their lives?
Let you guys know that she has an event that she's hosting alongside Empress, who is a recording artist, and she has her own studio. It's called Queens Connect, and it will be going down at Creative Lounge. That's in Tampa, Florida. Would you tell them the date of Queens Connect, please?
So it's going to be March 19th. From 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's going to be hosted at the Creative Lounge. So that's on Nebraska and Fletcher, not too far from Todd's. The entrance fee is $35, but that does include the bottomless mimosas and a t-shirt with the Queens Connect logo that I was speaking about earlier. So it's a picture with Muslim, white, and black women all together. That's going to be actually on the t-shirt. So we're passing those out. And that's in alignment with my actual clothing line, the Marjani collection. So you'll see the Marjani collection on there because I actually did design the logo.
Awesome. Okay, so like pretty much you've been expounding on how networking has been beneficial to your life because you're obviously an excellent networker to even put on an event like this, especially with other women. It's going to be cater event, right, by women catering services?
Yeah, it's going to be catered by a women's catering service. Everything is actually going to be
the DJ,
involved a woman business. So the DJ is actually a woman. So we got a female DJ. All the vendors are female businesses. The speakers are females which are really good powerhouses within their respective communities. We have some authors coming, event planners, rappers, singers, a nutritionist. It's going to be a good, diverse group of women that are going to be speaking. And with that being said, it's a perfect opportunity for everyone to talk and basically kind of know who in our community does what. So we always have someone to reach out to.
Yes, and this is going to be probably the first of many. This is a brunch, by the way, and it's a networking brunch for women. That's why it's called Queens Connect. And, you know, it's going to be awesome. I hope you guys come through, or even, you know, being that you are informed now, whenever we have events at Creative Lounge, that's Queens Connect, and you guys can get tickets at Eventbrite. So Eventbrite, that's I think it's international. It's a website. And if you put in Queens Connect, I'm pretty sure the information will come up. Definitely going to be more to come from this event because I believe and I know it will be successful because women are involved, you know, and as she enlighten you guys that like we look out for one another and like building connections is a great thing in today's age because it gives way to opportunities and you know, make new contacts is good. So do you feel like there's an ineffective way to make contacts? Like networking is networking. You're creating a net, you know, of a lot of people. But like, is there an ineffective way of networking in your eyes?
I think the best way to network is usually to make sure that you have some type of material to give to the person, right? And also be friendly and be open. I feel like one stigma that we have, especially in the South, because when I lived in New York, it's not like that. One stigma we got in the South is we're pretty much really high and by. Nobody really tries to connect with people. And then usually it's always that one person who's probably the most extroverted who is connecting. Everyone else is kind of still in their bubble or their social circle.
And you said that's up north, right? Or that's down south?
I think that's more down south. Yeah,
really?
In New York, because in New York, one thing about New York City is people will ignore the ish out of you.
Right.
But as soon as you ask them a question with some basis, you will have the best conversation you've ever had in your life.
Wow.
Because New Yorkers come from so many different walks of life.
It is like a melting pot.
And I feel like here in the South, we're always taught courtesy.
Right.
Say
Well,
hi.
Southern hospitality, yeah.
Right. We're told to say hi, even if you don't like the person. You
Yeah,
know
it
what I'm
becomes
saying? That's
cliche. I
like,
get what you're saying. It's not really
yeah,
building a
it comes
connection.
exactly. So the best way I would say is when you come to the brunch or when you go to any networking event, leave the people you came with. You know, make a plan to at least contact and talk to everyone. Make it a game if you need to. Go and speak to everyone. And the best thing to do when you approach someone, if you don't know what to say, is to ask them what brings them here. You know, what are they trying to pitch? What are they trying to get out of this? You know,
Right.
and just in the fact that you'll get someone pitching what they do and stuff like that, you can also pitch what you do and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way is to exchange something, whether it be business cards, some form of literature,
Mm-hmm.
social media content. Sometimes it's a little rough to do it with phone numbers because I know we're in a day and age
It's
where
personal.
people don't really call. It's personal. People don't really call and talk on the phone like that. And nobody's going to text you unless they really know you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's always best to leave something with them. If they follow you on social media, they'll see you posting. They'll be like, oh, yeah, I met that girl, Queen Connect, and she says she does nails. Let me hit her up and see if I can schedule an appointment. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So things of that nature. Definitely leave something with someone. And also open yourself up to make sure you get in contact as many people as you possibly can. And if you come with friends, make it a point to network outwards. You don't have to bring your friends towards everyone also, like approach people in groups, because sometimes it makes the presenter a little uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Individual speaking usually is a better connection, and on top of that, it makes so that you cover more ground and get all your stuff out and no one feels overwhelmed to be extra professional or extra just to talk to you and your friends as they would if they just talked to you. So those are my tips for as far as, networking etiquette and things of that nature.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your, awesome insight and like you're awesome. Like you're a great networker. So like, do you have any women that you want to highlight because it is Women's History Month, or anybody in your personal life, any woman that you want to like inform the world on who they should probably like look into researching or just know about, even trivial information? Like it's good to, you may come across something in the future and you recall, oh yeah, I recall this person talking about this woman. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, of course. Definitely my mother and my grandma. Those are the two powerhouses within my household who have basically taught me everything I needed to know. My mother, since the era she was born in was between racial issues and the woman's issues and all that stuff, she lived so vicariously through me because she always tells me like being able to travel, not having kids at this age, because she had her first child at 15.
Wow.
It was normalized at that time. She always asks about my dog and stuff like that, loves to see me travel, loves the fact that I open businesses because she hasn't been able to. And she's one of those women who has literally seen every type of walk of life. So she always has so much insight for me. Even though she's someone who didn't get a formal education, she's taught me that you don't have to get all your knowledge from just education. I feel like that's something that sometimes we think of in America as it's so important that, you don't know anything if you don't got this diploma.
Right.
But she is so wise and knows so much and has so insight, even when she doesn't have the words for it. And she's one of those people in my life who, always told me, Donia, like, the great words of Erykah Badu, what good does your words do if they can't understand you?
I got you.
Which is why when I do talk a lot of times, I know I tend to like use words that I know and things like that. But I always keep it in alignment so people can understand where I'm coming from, because I don't want to keep building barriers between people. If you have something to share and some knowledge, even if the next person doesn't, don't speak to them like you're just trying to give them all this information in these big words. Speak to the individual so they can understand.
Right. That's the importance of the one-on-one that you was talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And then my mother, she, being an immigrant, came here, worked in McDonald's, and now, she has a whole PhD in education.
Wow. She's
worked for the school district and all that. She's been the woman that I've seen who literally says there's nothing you cannot do. And I've seen her go through all that. There's been times where when she went to Miami-Dade, I would be in the back of the class with her. If you're from Miami, Miami-Dade, they don't care. So I'd be in the back of the class, playing and drawing while she was getting her associates,
Wow.
And then when she got her bachelor's, I remember her graduating with that from FIU. Then I remember her going to Nova and then getting her master's and then going back for her PhD. And she just made it a point to me that I hate when men say a lot of those things are masculine, because my mother is like the most feminine woman ever. She used to be a model. So she and my dad, even though he's not a woman, used to always tell me that your beauty's going to take you far, but your mind has to take you further.
Indeed.
It's a lot of us as women, we get trapped in our beauty, and then as soon as, the youth leaves us, we're devastated. So I think having the knowledge and just being a good person is what's going to guide you through the rest of your life. And I think that's important for women to understand.
Well, big up to Mama, to your mother for being the great, woman that she is, and may she continue to be great and inspire not just yourself, but other women.
Yeah, and one of the women that I did also want to just highlight that I think people should look into is Nikki Kendall. There's Nikki Kendall, and then there's another author. I can't think of her name right now, but she wrote the book When Chicken Heads Come to Roost.
Okay.
So When Chicken Heads Come to Roost is basically a hood feminist book. So, Joan Morgan, that's her name. She's a great author. It's a hood feminist book. So basically, they wrote these books while they were in their master's programs, but they wrote it for the girls in the hood.
I got you.
They wrote it because they felt like when it comes to black women, we don't think about feminism as including us. We think about feminism as being a white girl's issue, that, you didn't want to be in the home, now you want to work and do all this stuff when we've had to struggle and for our families forever. A lot of black women are the head of the households. But it brings you back a little bit to realize why unity matters between us and why we shouldn't be harsh to everybody.
Right.
Like in her book, she talks about how are you going to want to stand for women's rights and you don't include the Instagram models. You don't want to include the strippers. You don't want to include the lesbians or the women who would be seen as other in society, right? At least in the time she wrote the book. And she talks about the reality that a lot of these industries like sex work would not exist if men didn't create those platforms. So how are you judging those women for going and working in those fields that were created for them? And she just talks about how it's so important to understand that even if you're black and educated, even if you're black and from the hood, and you're a woman, that we all have the same struggle. And a lot of times our struggles align so much more that there should be more solidarity within the female black community. And within that solidarity, we can go ahead and unite with other races and become a powerhouse for women. But it's the fact that sometimes, like, the individualized communities, there's so many problems within them that we get lost in individualism. Like, if I do this for myself, I'm good. I don't need to bring y'all with me. And she's saying that it's really harmful because when history shapes itself, it's never just the individuals. It's the community that they stood for.
Right.
It's so important that we are a community, and I do suggest everyone read that book because it's an easy read. Like, it's not, even though she was in her master's degree, she wasn't using really big words, and she breaks down a lot of different types of feminisms. She talks to sex workers, she talks to the college educated, she talks to the regular single mom, she talks to the married women, and they all give their perspectives, and she breaks it down on how it shaped her life. It's a beautiful book.
Oh, awesome. I'm gonna have to definitely get that book so I can read into it. Just knowing that there's people advocating, like, for women, you know what I'm saying, so we can network and become like better people and unify and empower ourselves. Okay, well, I have somebody as well that I wanted to highlight. She's important to all of us, but like ultimately it's personalized because, like, she's the first poet, the first American author. She's an African American author that was published. It was a book of poems. Her name is Phyllis Wheatley.
Okay, I've heard of Phyllis Wheatley. Okay.
Yeah, she was born in West Africa, but she was a slave here, and she was born in 1753, And her first publication, I believe it came out in the 1700s. But yeah, she's important because like we wouldn't be rappers, we wouldn't have anything to do with music or poetry or any type of literacy if she wasn't the pioneer of like, you know, being the first published. So I'm grateful for her. Thank you so much for all the great wisdom that you have shared with us today. Tell us where we can follow you at, Donia.
Oh, yeah, you guys can follow me at Donia.Kristy. That's DONIA.KRISTY.
Okay, and what about your business, your clothing line?
That's for Instagram. And then for my actual clothing line, it's the Marjani collection. So if you just type in the Marjani CO on Instagram, you'll find that. And then the website's just themarjanicollection.com. Definitely follow me on TikTok. It's Don Illustrator, which is actually my artist handle. But yeah, that's how you can find me on everything. And then Don Illustrator follows me everywhere. So Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. You'll find, if you put that tag in, you'll find me.
Okay. Are there any like projects in the works, like any books that you want to publish in the future, or anything that you're going to do, that you're going to, you know, broadcast and put out there for the people?
Well, right now, I'm just trying to work on graduating.
Oh, I feel you. Okay, well, continue to be great in school and do well. I wish you well in all your endeavors. Okay, well, thank you again for, you know, gifting me with your presence and your great knowledge.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for having me.
Thank y'all for listening. Much love and light. Stay woke, fam.